welcome to a new episode of this new studio. My name's Tim, the one and only child of Mecha, and as you can see, we're cleaning up the studio. So today, in this video, it's a big one. We start to lay the flooring. I'm excited, I can't wait. But real quick, to recap what we've done in this space, we've torn out all that old shag carpeting and the padding and everything, cleaned up all of the flooring from the tack strips and nailing strips and all of that stuff. We've gone ahead and fixed the walls, especially this corner here that you guys can't see. It's on the opposite side of the camera. Sanded everything down, primed it, painted the trim. This place looks immaculate. Now, doing a final cleaning, and then we can start to lay the floor. But there's a few things that we have to do first. There's a couple things that we're gonna need to take care of and then take into consideration. And let me show you that starting off. So if you don't remember the type of flooring that we've got this really nice vinyl plank flooring. It's already got the padding and underlayment already attached. This is a rigid core, 100% waterproof, and I think it accents the room color excellently. This stuff is super easy to work with too. I originally had thought that I'm gonna have to get out my miter saw and, saw each one of these individually, for the end pieces and things like that. But I'm happy to say that all you really need to do to cut this is a nice utility knife. That's it. So, real easy to do. You got your speed square, 1 pass, 2 pass, and it's just like using plastic sheet or plow plate. Score and snap. Really easy to work with. Now, this is obviously a sacrificial piece, so we'll save this and put that aside. But there are 2 pieces that I actually needed before getting to work. One piece is a sacrificial piece because I'll lay this down and cut the existing trim to the same height as this piece. So this piece of existing trim right here that goes into the bathroom, that actually goes all the way to the floor. Now, to do this, I'm going to need my oscillating tool, but I'll put this right up against there, and that will be a good height guide for cutting the trim all around this place. Now, in this main area of the studio, it's kind of a square, so orientation really isn't going to matter in here. I can run it this way, I can run it this way, and it wouldn't really make a whole huge difference. Now, the one thing that we do need to consider is the entryway. And as you can see, I've laid out some of the pieces of plank flooring here to see what it would look like in this entryway. Obviously, this entryway is more of a rectangle, and the flow of it looks better in this parallel direction to this particular wall and to the washer-dryer unit area over here. So what I'm thinking is running it this way all throughout this space, and I think that looks really good. I laid all of these down in just about a minute or 2, and the interlocking system and the seams are super tight. I could not be happier with the way that these look. So we're going to get to work, number 1, cutting these trim pieces over here to where they'll fit, and then start laying this floor out and scribing around that obstacle, this obstacle over here, and then obviously we're going to need to get out the table saw and cut this longer piece here. So another thing that we have to take into consideration is the transition molding. This is the existing tile flooring that leads in from the garage into the studio. I went ahead and got some transition molding, and it comes with this U-channel that it basically nests down into. But to attach this to the concrete, we're going to need to drill some holes into the concrete itself with our trusty hammer drill. And we've got some Tapcon concrete screws here, 1.25 inch, 3/16 diameter. So to do that, we're going to need our good old 5/32 drill bit, like I said, in our hammer drill. All right, so now that we've got these holes drilled, now we can use our Tapcon screws to screw this down to the concrete and really secure this transition. Start it off slow and get it driven in. And that transition is not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So the reason why we cut a sacrificial piece here is to cut the existing trim work to the exact height of the actual piece. So to do that, we just lay this right up against the existing trim work. Now, the people that evidently finished this off before I moved in weren't the smartest people in the world, because the trim work is touching the concrete, which is not a good thing, because just like the drywall, it will soak up any residual moisture from the concrete, which is a porous material. So there is a little bit of, rotting at the very, very bottom of these. So it's a good thing that I'm cutting these off. But to do this, all you gotta do, set your sacrificial piece right up against the existing trim with an oscillating tool, and with a nice wood cutting blade on here, you can pop that right across the top of the sacrificial piece, cut that existing trim work to the exact height of this vinyl flooring, and slide that right underneath to make it look perfect. So let's take a look and see how it works. So one of the tricky spots in this installation is right here near the laundry units. We've got this opening, and I need to find a way to fit not only that piece underneath the existing trim, but also this piece. Now, I've come up with a solution. So I've already got the first piece fit in underneath the existing trim, and it's a lot of space under there. It's probably I tapped it in a good 3/4 to a full inch underneath of the existing trim, which means I have some wiggle room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this this filler piece to length first, with notching it with my utility knife. So I'm going to cut it to length and then cut it to width, attach it onto the piece, and then using some double-sided tape in my tapping block, I will tap that back in underneath of this side of the existing trim, leaving both sides underneath of their respective trim pieces. It should work. Let's see. All right, so as you can see, everything on this side is nice and under that trim. And if we go and look at the other side, that's all nice and neat too. I also have to finish painting that, but don't mind that. But it all looks good. So that's one kind of creative way of getting this obstacle out of the way. So 3 really essential tools for laying vinyl plank flooring or laminate or what have you. Number 1, simple hammer, tapping block, and your hook. This right here we're going to use, and this actually helps a lot with getting into really hard to reach places, especially along the wall where you need to tap a piece to connect it to another run. So let me show you real quick how we do that, and you'll see the worth of this thing. All right, so here we have this piece that we laid down at the end of this row, but we connected it to the existing piece along the wall. Now we need to find out how to close this gap up, and that's where your hook and your hammer come into play. So by standing on the current row, the row that you're trying to connect, you put your hook at the edge of this and just start to tap it in, right? And that's going to slowly decrease this gap and make these two pieces come together. You might need to massage this a little bit just to make sure those pieces connect, but once you got it, that seam disappears. Really handy tool. So that's how you use your hook and your hammer. So your tapping block plays kind of the same role as your hook. We use this to tap in the run of vinyl plank flooring into the existing one. So in this case, we're going to tap this row that direction to close up this seam here. So to do that, we're going to put all of our weight on the existing floor, the floor that's already installed. We've got this row connected to the existing install. So we're going to use our block down here, and we're just going to tap this in. And it's going to slide and close that gap really, really nice and clean. That is perfect. Now, another thing that you can use the tapping block for is to tap this along the course to make sure everything's nice and even, and also at the joints down here to make sure that these two pieces are perfectly parallel. So that looks beautiful. Maybe just a little bit right here. Nice. So we're getting down here on the last row of this flooring, and it gets a little tricky at the wall, right? So because you need to fit this in, but you also need to leave a room for expansion gap and things like that. So with this particular row, I had to cut it down to about 5 inches. I had to cut about 2.5 inches off or so. Now tapping it back into the previous piece, that's where it gets a little tricky because the tapping block doesn't fit in that space, right? So that's where the hook comes into play. And then also, I made a little sacrificial block right here that links in with the end of the piece that I'm trying to tap in. So now, instead of potentially damaging the interlocking piece on this row, I can just slide in this little sacrificial piece. It has a completely flat back. I can then put my hook into place and start tapping it until it marries up with the pre-existing piece down the line. So some of these things, you know, these little sacrificial blocks, very useful. Cut one here to go in this way, and that's how I tapped that course in there. Because yeah, the tapping block will fit, but how are you going to get your hammer in there to get any real force, right? So by using, you know, a couple sacrificial block pieces that interlink with the mechanism, these make short work and solve a problem. So if you're laying floor, consider using these. That's the last piece. Flooring is done. Yeah, look at this. All right. This, my friends, is looking like a finished floor. I absolutely love it. Man, this looks really good, you guys. With the wall and everything. And the white trim that's going to go down along the perimeter. Oh, this is going to look amazing. We're going to replace all of the outlets with bright white outlets and outlet covers. Man, this place is going to pop once it's done. Super happy with it. Look at this. Look at this. Yeah. All right, so got the trim. This is standard height baseboard with the ultra pure white that I painted the existing trim with. And we got 2 coats on here. This is made of just simple MDF, medium density fiberboard. And you guys, I think this is going to look really, really great once we get it installed along the base of the walls. So, next step, let it dry, cut it, nail it, and that'll be it. We've got the trim laid down, installed. All the nail holes are filled. All of the corners are nice and clean. Everything is looking pretty good as far as the trim goes. Now, just need to caulk. That's what the blue tape is for. And then do the one final coat of paint. And then the trim basically is done. But it's been a long time coming. So I decided not to film the installation process for the trim, mainly because I'm just not really that good at it. These walls are far from square and plumb, so it made installation a bit of a challenge, especially in the corners. You can cover up all the mistakes and everything with a little creativity, just like in modeling. Little putty, little paint, you can hide a lot. So that's what we went ahead and did, and I have to say that I really, really like how the trim came out because it offsets the wall color and the flooring really, really well. It's a nice, classic separation, coupled with the bright white outlet covers and everything. I think this is a really classic look. So I'm really happy with it, and on to the next project. One of the biggest challenges and kind of disappointments of this entire place was the bathroom door. Originally, it was a 6-panel door, and it was perfectly fine. Painted it, installed it again, and went to mortise the new latch set. And my router blew out of the side and essentially ruined the door. So had to go to Home Depot and buy a new one. And instead of the traditional 6-panel door, I went with instead a nice subtle 2-panel door. And I really like it a lot better. I think it's cleaner. I think it's a little bit more modern than the 6-panel look. And after cutting and trimming and doing all the mortising and everything for the hinges, the lock set and everything, this thing came out great. And I'm really, really happy with it. So for the lock set and everything on the door, I decided to go with a satin nickel finish. I also coupled that with a nice satin nickel hinge set as well. And overall, I think the door came out really, really nicely. It's just a very, very classic look, somewhat modern, and I think that fits the theme of the studio as an overall. So really, really happy with how everything turned out. So with that being said, you guys, I'm really, really happy to say that with this episode, this concludes main renovations of this space. Now, fear not, because that does not conclude the series, this new studio. We're going to do some other side projects in this place. We have to move in. Obviously, that I've already started that. We're getting rid of the nasty blue color over here from the shelves, and we're going with the nice dark gray color. We're converting all the blueberry over to that. And so we're going to do some other things. I need to replace this light above us with 4 LED panels. We're going to need to install sound clouds in here because obviously the echo is still pretty nasty. It's a pretty studio at this point, but it's not functional. So in more episodes to come, we'll work on that and get this place into gear. So with that being said, thanks for joining us here on another episode of this new studio. I'm your host, Tim, the one and only child of Mecha, and I will see you next time.